everybody, and welcome to another great episode of HR Breakfast USA. And as ever, I'd like to introduce, 30? Is it 30?
29.
29.
It says 29 above my head where we're streaming from. So is it? No, I'm confused.
Oh, it does. Good morning, everybody. Anyway, I'd love to introduce my co-hosts, Callie.
Hello.
And Toby.
Hello. No, that doesn't work. I tried it. I thought I was going to do it. And then I've got the cable. I've been without the cable all day. And then I tried this and then... Moving on.
So, for those of you who are catching up on this and listening to it on a podcast, Toby has just tried to, in his swivel chair, do a 360, got to about 270 and forgot he had his cord in his headphones. Happy Monday! Anyway, Toby, this is going to make you happy because we're talking about employer brand today and the importance of employer brand. And it's really interesting that there are still the completely outdated organizations who think it's a tick box exercise rather than their whole being and who they are. From the second someone has contact with you as your brand to the second someone disconnects, that's your employer brand. And for me, as someone who travels a lot, Virgin are a fabulous example of a great employer brand. Every single person I've ever met in Virgin is always proud to be Virgin. They're all personable. They all can't do enough to help you. And they just go that little bit above and beyond. You know, whatever they're doing right. And I don't think there are many organizations that can really say, you know, do the same from across the board these days. When we come to looking at employer brand, what's the magic ingredient? I'm not going to say secret sauce because that's really irritates me. Callie, what's the magic ingredients to employer brand?
Authenticity. It's got to be real. You can't just do fun things for the sake of appeasing your employees. It has to all be connected. There has to be a bigger strategy, and you have to be doing right by your people, or it's going to backfire and blow up in your face.
Too true, Dad. Toby.
Do I have to say it in one word? Was that in a word?
No.
Oh, Callie just went with one word. I was like, I missed something here.
Powerful word.
No, it took me long enough to think of the one word that I wanted. That's all. Sorry.
Okay. Three big tips from Toby, which is nearly alliteration, but not quite. Number one, like employer brand doesn't exist. I would say employer brand is just like, you have your brand. Your company's brand is your brand. And to think of employer brand as anything separate is going to be detrimental to what you design. And here is for why. I went to work for the coolest telecommunications company here in the UK. They have lots of music venues, a really nice domed music venue that is specifically named after this company. And I was always like a massive fan of said blue telecommunications dome company. And I went there expecting that it was going to be a really cool, vibrant place to work. And I got there and it wasn't. It was awful. It wasn't awful, but it was like, it didn't live up to the hype. And so therefore, anything that was done with employer brand in that regard, or just felt like a Diet Coke version of what was on offer, and ultimately led me to be really let down that the company was just kind of, it's super vanilla back here. Actually, the front end is all amazing and sparkly and blue, but the back end is super vanilla. So I think there's a real rationale that forget employer brand, like it is brand. The second thing is the skill set needed for employer brand. It's marketing is all it is, right? So to try and carve a specific career or role for employer brand seems a little bit ridiculous when it could actually be brought under more holistic marketing. And I'm not saying don't hire an employer brand person, but what I'm saying is that those people shouldn't sit within a HR or people function. They should sit in the marketing team. And then the last thing is about what that employer brand says. And most companies, I'm going to fire up some websites in a minute, see if we can do a live show and tell, but like deliver quite bland messaging when it comes to employer brand about what it is like to work there and stuff like that. So that ultimately means you haven't practiced human-centered design. You've not really got any user insight from your people about it, what it's like to work. All you're trying to do is manufacture what you think and not what you've researched, what you think people want to hear on the other end. We want to hire a diverse workforce. We have a really fast-moving, we're a fast-moving organization. I don't know why that comes up a lot. Why is every organization fast-moving? Like, if every organization is fast moving, then we're all moving at the same pace. So it doesn't, in context, is actually nothing. But anyway, they're the three things, right? There's employer brand is just brand. The skills sets you need for that aren't anything to do with HR, they're to do with marketing. So stick it in a marketing function. And the last one is you've got to design it from human-centered insight. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a huge swathe of vanilla out there.
But Toby, all joking aside, they're these keywords, right? And I think they're, as we all know, a lot of these management consultants that would charge you $30,000 to tell you the time when you've already got a clock on the wall. They've used the same buzzwords, as far as I can tell, for at least the last 30 years. Fast pace, fast moving, dynamic. And here's the one that's a real killer. We like family as an employer brand, and then they wonder why they have problems. Toby, I like the fact that you've said it's a lot about a lot of it is about the marketing piece, which also ties in really well, Callie, with what you said about the whole piece about this being the authentic piece about it. I do think employer brand is a thing. It's about the values that someone's aligned to, that someone can go, yes, I get that company. That's the kind of company I want to work with. But they've just got to get rid of the word wang. I was very careful with that. For context, there is a couple of comedians in the UK and they have a game show called Number Wang. So I just changed it to word wang, but I was very careful with the G at the end. And I think that's what these companies need to do. They really need to just self-identify. This is who we are as an organization. This is where we're going. And these are going to be the challenges along the way because we're in a different era now. Gone are the days of things being slick and perfect and everything else. No one wants to work for perfect. And I think when we look at that, if we were to get rid of these management consultants and start again, how would we be describing some of these big companies? Callie, you started there with authenticity and those kind of words. Tell me more about where you were going with that and an organization, if you want to name them, that you think are doing a great job in that field.
Yeah, I mean, I know the one that I keep talking about is BioLife and Takeda in the US.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason that they've done such a great job is because Takeda is a Japanese company. It is not an American company. And so they're bringing BioLife up to that high standard of what really the rest of the world expects. And US companies have kind of gotten by saying, oh, the American dream is you work your butt off and it's going to pay off. And that right now we're at a really interesting point where people are saying, I'm done with it. That's not a thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, to that authenticity point is a lot of companies have gone too far in the realm of, how do we expand? We bring on other companies, we're pacifying our shareholders because we've expanded to the point where organic growth is no longer possible. And so now all of a sudden you've got very, very different agendas without taking into consideration what that employee experience is, or how you try to keep that institutional knowledge in place, how you try to keep people saying nice things about your brand. I don't think they care. And so back to the authenticity piece, if you're not going to care, own that. And then employer brand is entirely above or beyond you. But if you say, hey, we care about who our people are, we want this company to grow in a way that supports people and really creates a thriving workplace, then you've got to step back and say, what is it that our people need to feel like they're engaged and connected to the organization? What do our customers need, to Toby's point? But we've got an extensive amount of research showing that the best customer experience comes from the best employee experience. And that's not where most companies are acting right now. So we need to do a better job of connecting the dots, how to create an employee experience that creates the kind of a customer experience that we want. And that comes from listening. It's not rocket science. Toby, you want me to share?
Yeah, I just want to fire up something here. So I'm going to go to, I've looked at the employer brand sites for two companies here. Currys are an electronic retailer based here in the UK. And for balance, we have Best Buy, an electronic retailer in the US. So
Minnesota.
Are they from Minnesota?
Yeah, headquarters is in Minneapolis.
Nice.
Good choice, Toby.
Okay, well, that was completely intentional. Okay, so I'm coming to Minneapolis. I might not want to anger them too much. But culture and values, right? I think for one thing, to advertise, like, no brand advertises its culture and values for a customer, right? So it feels kind of weird to be doing that. Obviously, as an employee, there is a closer relationship there. So you have to drill into that relationship a bit more because you're going to spend more time and effort in that than you would as a customer. But what you end up, and this is the vanilla piece I was talking about, right, is a culture that values and brings us together. Okay, well, guess what? Employment brings you together. Like, I don't think the culture and values do not bring you together. The fact that you're all being paid to do a job brings you together in reality. Retailers love this one and always put it first. We put our customers first. Well, of course you do. That's kind of goes without saying, right? That we do everything to help our customers. Cool. That's still not really delving into what it's like to work there, though. You're telling me what you want me to, almost what the output is, not what it's like to work there. Inclusion and diversity. I think we've talked about this before. Everybody talks about inclusion, embracing diversity, but employee experience is then designed in a kind of a monolithic way, which is counterintuitive. But you always see it, like everyone will always put it on there. Well-being, more and more so, people put that on there. Supporting people in the environment, giving tech longer life. So there's a bit of a climate thing there as well. So you can see that all of this stuff is just built on trends in conversations outside of work. Climate, well-being, diversity and inclusion, and you might check equity in there if you may wish. And if you're a retailer,
look at our cheap swag.
Yeah. Yeah, join us. You can get a mental health. What'll help with your mental health? A stress ball and a water bottle. Sure. Okay, fine. That's great. Like,
Wow.
Like, all of this stuff is relatively arbitrary information that doesn't really do anything other than kind of go, oh yeah, by the way, to your point, Sam, we've ticked some boxes to make sure that we're saying the stuff that everybody else is saying. That's all that's happening here. Let's quickly scoot over to Best Buy and let's see. And I've not looked at these beforehand, so let's just see what they're doing right. Having fun while being the best. Okay, cool. I'd quite like to have fun at work. That's fine. Maybe not the primary driver, but fun, cool. Learning from challenge and change, right? So there's going to be challenge, there's going to be change. Unleashing the power of our people. Yeah, okay. There's a D&I thing right here as well. Like, so we want people to learn. We want a diverse workforce. We want people to always learn. And we want people to have fun. The fun one's an interesting one because not everyone goes with that. But like, every organization wants their employees to continuously learn, again, to benefit the organization. We want to give people empowerment and all that kind of stuff. We want a diverse workforce. Again, there's just not too much difference here in terms of what messaging is out there in the world. And I'll close this down now so we can talk about it. But essentially, what you end up with there is that I could have written that for any company in the world to say you should work for us. Nothing there has said what it's genuinely like to work at either. And this isn't a slam on either of those organizations, because every company does it, right? I'm not digging at Curry's here in the UK or Best Buy in the US, but every company takes that approach, and it's yawn-inducing to think that that is the very, very best somebody with a marketeer's hat on could come up with to get people to want to join that company. Now, if there was, now you look at those both quite strong brands here in the UK and in the US, like, you should be leveraging that. Why are you not leveraging all that stuff? Why are you leveraging this new stuff that you've invented, which completely dilutes anything else? It baffles me. It really does.
One, completely. And the first one, the British one, just looked like, to your point, layer over layer over layer over layer. And there's nothing appealing about that. There's no, it's just same old, same old. It goes back to that whole thing, to the marketing aspect you were talking about, Toby, which is, the so what test in marketing, right? If you put your brand out there and then your description, who else's brand, take out your company name and stick in a competitor or your nearest rival, the 6 degrees of competition is a really big thing. But neither of those pass the so what test.
I have an example. I'm trying to find it online and I don't know that I'm going to see it, but Red Wing Boots, they're out of Minnesota as well. They're the stretch between Minneapolis and about an hour south in Rochester. And that whole stretch for the last couple of years has been filled with billboards congratulating employees on 20 years of employment, 25 years of employment. And it is the coolest thing because it's a real person. They say exactly what position they've been working. And that's it, right? Like, brilliant branding. Not only have we created an incredible product that probably could last you just as long as these employees have worked here, but 2, we've created a place that people want to still work for 25 years. How is that even possible?
Yeah.
And so I always get really excited when we're driving that particular stretch just to see what they're saying. But I think it's just brilliant advertising that does really well what Toby talked about, which is, building that connection. How do you think that employee feels when they drive that stretch? Because they likely do. And they get to see their face on a billboard celebrating their commitment to this company that's hopefully invested in them as well.
I like that.
Nice.
It goes back to that whole thing about individuality. And I do get it with a large organization with, 30,000 employees worldwide. I do get it, but they still have small departments and divisions within the organization where they can connect. And I also get it that they've got this interconnectivity that they've got to work in. Some managers are going to be better than others, and that whole piece. But the fundamental thing is that individuality within an employer brand. When are they going to wake up and realize that actually most generations now, thanks to COVID and that kind of break in the world it gave us, how we think about the world of work and how we want to work is different. And they just need to keep up and wake up with that. And surely that's a huge piece of the employer branding that is missing. And for me, I'm almost at the point now, I've gone beyond being irritated and annoyed by it. I'm perplexed why these larger organizations can't see that. Is it because they're too busy commanding and demanding people come back to the office and all the fallout for that, and therefore they are not prepared to change? Or is it the case of they don't know how?
I think there's a lot of small companies that aren't doing it either, right? Like, I don't think it's a size piece. I think the challenges that create the problems employees are dealing with, or the lack of capitalization on employer brand, is happening for different reasons. But I think it's not necessarily a size issue. It's a foresight issue.
Oh, well said, Callie.
I think the world has fundamentally changed since employer brand kind of became an industry and a thing in itself, right?
Yeah.
Imagine a world where you didn't have a website to chuck your employer brand on. Just imagine that didn't exist, because it's quite easy to do, because most small companies probably don't have one.
Yeah.
Okay, so therefore, how are people going to become more? And I think this is where the thinking is fairly limited. Is like, if you didn't have that, I need to write this down because this is one for the Freeform's What If cards. If you didn't have a website to put on your employer brand, where would it live, breathe, and manifest itself? Glassdoor, Indeed, social media. It would live and breathe probably through your employees. So your employer brand is really your ex-employees, therefore, are the best indicator and best thing that you have to accelerate and amplify your employer brand. No one does it, though. Everyone does it. Everyone does it, they kind of go, oh, cool, let's, we'll get a film company in, they'll give them 50 grand or whatever. We'll take some employees and we'll go and interview them. And it's like, yeah, but that's not necessarily it, right? And I think I talked about this. We worked with a company called Channel Assist who are doing some incredible things, and that's what we did. But we didn't plan it. We said, we're gonna film you. We just want you to talk about what it's like to work there. There was no script. There was no preparation. There was no overproduction on it. It was like, these are what people are genuinely saying.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah, go.
How did you pick the people to participate?
Oh, well, this is quite interesting. We didn't. The client did.
Oh, how did they pick it?
It was kind of voluntary. Like they weren't picked. They weren't. Well, yeah, this is it, right? They weren't picked. They weren't saying we need you, and you. It's like, who would be comfortable talking about what it's like to work here? And this is the other. And we've seen this with loads of programs that we've run with clients. Right? Is that never ask someone to do something that they might not want to do. Championing, like internal champions, is a classic one, right? Oh, we want you to champion wellbeing. We want you to champion this new piece of software. We want you to champion this. And generally that person has zero interest or isn't the right person to do it in the first place. Self-electing drives that engagement. So I think that's an important part of it, and I think that's testament to Channel Assist, right, as a company, that they clearly said, hey, we're going to shoot some quick videos about what it's like to work here. Who wants in? And like, they had loads of people. It was just like, well, that in itself is testament to what it's like to work there, that people want to do it. Like, we didn't have to ask. People want to do it. And you know what? They had a great day doing it as well. I have done that with previous employers before, where it's like, trying to find people that want to do that is like drawing blood from a stone. Like, no one steps forward to do it. And then you end up, this is the worst thing. And I have seen this from ex-employers as well, right? Is that you get people from the HR team doing videos about what it's like to work there. And it's like, oh, so what, your employer brand team just went, hey, anybody in the office? Yeah, we're going to do a shoot for some employer brand videos next week. Anybody free? 1, 2, 3, great. You can come in. And that's how they'll do it. And you're just like, but you work in the L&D team. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. There is the two reasons. There is always the two reasons why someone from L&D will be in a large corporate's employer brand films. One is because they're probably the most available, and B, they're just that type of personality that love being on camera. So like there'll always be an L&D person because they'll be the first people. Oh, miss me. I want to be in the video. The L&D people will be all over that stuff. But it's just like, that's so. I edited like a couple of clips out of last week's show, and I said lazy, and it's lazy again. It's like, that's not. If you can't find people to voluntarily talk about what it's like to work at your company and advocate for it, do you not think that is a slight issue with your employee experience?
So kind of the basis of that question, and I a little off of a tangent here, let me connect it back. But there was a study that came out about a decade ago that talked about colleges and their promotional materials and how the more diverse the student population looked in their recruitment materials, the less diverse the population of the college actually was. So that's the lens that I look at employer, like, who are we hiring, especially here where I live in an area that doesn't have a lot of diversity. It's getting better. But an employer here who includes a lot of new American populations that maybe doesn't necessarily have a work. I question, I guess, is my point. Specifically, if I know a company is in this area, what the motivation is for the people that are included and whether or not that actually reflects what we want it to, or if we're tokenizing. I just think it's a bigger conversation that companies, I hope, are taking into consideration when they're making those materials, is what's actually representative of who we are, and are we making sure to represent the truth, or are we representing an idealized version of the truth, which I think is often happening, that is quickly falls apart when people walk in the door.
Maybe we're just Googling Unsplash for photos of employees at a meeting and sticking that on the website. But like, it isn't about like seeing yourself visually in a photograph or in some branding is important, but like not the like that isn't the be all and end all of employer brand. Is like you have to be able to see that someone like yourself works there. Now that could be race, that could be gender, that could be sexuality, that could be a huge amounts of things. It could be your anything with your personal life, right? Does this environment allow me to be the best, I don't know, father of two that I can possibly be?
Yeah.
Probably not. I don't know. I don't know which brand I'm looking at, but like probably not, because I don't see it. Does this company help me be the best X, Y, or Z? Like, you have to be able to see it and live it and breathe it, and you'll only see that by living and breathing like the lived experience of others. But the lived experience of others is done through social proof, not through. So, Toby, little fireside chat with you. What's it like to work at big blue dome music venue telecommunications company? What do you want me to say? Do you want me to say, oh, actually, I came here expecting that it was going to be really magical and inspiring, and it's not? Do you want me to say that? Because that's what I'm thinking, but you haven't enabled me. You've just chucked me in front of camera and say something positive. So, and corporates do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, and I
That
just
sounds great. Thank you.
I was just looking at Verizon's. I was just looking at Verizon's website. It's like actually Verizon have done a pretty good job. Like, I haven't watched any of the videos because I'm talking to you two, but like you can see that they've tried to humanize it more with human stories. None of that stuff is like company first. It's like whatever's going on in your life, like we're here to support that as well as you at work. And these are the examples of that, single mums, people who are full-time care, all these different circumstances manifest themselves. And this is where diversity, equity, and inclusion as a recruitment policy just doesn't work, because it is such a small, tiny fix in trying to actually create a system, an environment that appreciates and attracts, appreciates, supports a number of different people.
Yeah.
So I have a good friend, Peter Laughter. He'd be great to have on for our further version of this conversation. But he has this really cool idea around teaching employees, how to market themselves better, but in a lens of recruitment. And so your goal then with this recruitment strategy is you teach people how to, represent themselves on LinkedIn, whatever. But by getting them to engage with that population, you're increasing the likelihood that they hit someone they think would be a good fit at your company at the exact moment when that person is actually looking for work. And so rather than having your recruitment team doing the majority of the work, you're building an organic force that draws people into you. So your point about, people who used to work for companies are really, really important. And we've talked about that on previous episodes, but also what are you doing to make sure that it's not just, I'm telling people to work here for $100 referral bonus. I'm telling people to work here because I think that they would do a good job working here. And I want my name connected both to that person and to this company.
And that and the programs I've designed that lean into that is that if you're like, and that is helping someone in their career, regardless of where they work, right? That being able to accelerate their own personal brand. If they leave because of that, great. They're going to point to that. I used to work there. They gave me this program and I got a better job as a result. Yeah, it wasn't with the company, but I would definitely go and work there because they'll support you to get support you on the journey you're going on. Wow.
Your turnover.
Yeah, exactly. So but it's short-termist thinking that every HR department is focusing on attrition. It's like, doesn't really matter how many people are leaving in a given period. What probably matters is tenure, probably, but moreover, it's like, how are they when they've left? What are they advocates when they leave? Like I said, turn a website off for employer branding, and it should be lived and breathed through the comments and posts of other people, whether it's on Glassdoor, whether it's Indeed, whether it's on LinkedIn. That is where it's going to live and breathe, because it didn't used to matter in the old world. Because what you're going to do, you're going to tell a couple of people down the pub or wherever that it's a shitty place to work. No skin of our nose, doesn't really matter. Now, if it's a shitty place to work, congratulations. I've just told all my followers, all Sam's followers, all Callie's followers that I wouldn't recommend going to work in a blue music-based telecommunications dome company. Like, no one tracking that and seeing there's value. Like, we are losing brand value here because this ex-employee is going off on one. Like, it absolutely baffles me, And if someone from O2, I'll just say it, right? If someone O2 watches this, what do you think their reaction is? It's like, oh, stem the bleeding, stop him talking, don't let him talk about it. It's like, no, why don't you just call me up and figure out what went wrong and then try and fix it? Like, I'd be open to that. Like, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
And it's nothing. But this is the thing. It wasn't even like it was an oppressive, terrible place to work. It just didn't meet my expectations. But now I'm here and not painting it in the very best light through not meeting my expectations. And that's why employer brand is brand.
Question for you. How long ago did you leave that company?
6 years ago.
That's the part that I think people totally don't understand. I have places that I left 15 years ago that I'm still like, ooh, yeah, no, too soon. But that's real, right? Like, if you do a bad enough job at supporting employees or treating them like humans, that can last a really long time.
And it's not about, so one of the metrics that we use is ENPS. It's great because it's just a standard metric. You can benchmark against loads of other stuff. Great. But one of the questions you ask is like, would you ever come and work here again? Like, would you? Because if it's no, problem. If it's, yeah, if the right job came up, absolutely. They're great. But if it's no, then why is it a no? And this isn't an exit interview thing either, because you're going to get no sense. We talked about this before. You get little sense out of an exit interview because actually I'm way more reflective on my time now at O2 than I was in that moment, because a lot of it was driven by, anger and loads of other emotions, which were probably clouding not the decision making necessarily, but the thoughts and feelings. Now I reflect on it, it can be pretty robust in my evaluation, but I could have done that a year down the line, right? And that would have been helpful insight for their HR team.
Totally.
I need to tell you. I need to tell you about a really sexist thing the HR leader did once, but that's for another thing. Female HR leader as well, but I might add, incredibly sexist female HR leader. I would like to add. It was.
I mean, that's a cliffhanger I don't want.
Vomit in the mouth kind of stuff. You're just like, am I hearing this? Yeah.
Were you also told you could never get pregnant because you were too valuable to leave for weeks?
No, I personally haven't been told that, but there's a really good reason why I wouldn't have been told that. You've been told that.
It was a compliment, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. Great.
Wow.
Oh, by the way, you're so good at your job that we hope you don't have a life outside of work, if that's okay.
We hope that you can't have children, so you don't leave us for a small amount of time.
Wow.
And the world has gone mad.
And on that, really
double bombshell.
Double bombshell. So much to talk about when it comes to employer branding. Please let's kill the buzzwords around it. Get rid of the checklist and really talk about the individual experience, because this isn't woo. If you get the individual experience right, the productivity you'll get out of that individual is way higher. Fact. And there's commercial proof behind that. an employer brand is valuable to you as an organization because it will help you increase not only your profitability, but your desirability in the market. And hey, if you're an organization that's looking to sell in the next 5 to 6 years, you might want to make sure you get it right and talk to Toby. So, in summing up, what are your closing thoughts? Callie, let me start with you.
Twice I get to be put on the spot. I do not underestimate the power of your reputation and what you did to deserve said reputation.
Love it.
Little ominous.
Very succinct.
It could be positive, though. It could also be positive.
I agree. It can be positive when you get it so right. Toby.
I'm going to credit Rocket with this. So Rocket was on Freeforms and Friends on Thursday, and he said something ever so wise, which he occasionally, no, he does quite a lot. But like, no company manages, regardless of employer brand or not. Let's leave that debate to one side. But you don't control your brand. Be under no illusion that no one controls a brand. The brand is lived and breathed by the people that have engaged with it. That's the people who control it. So don't try and control it and putting it on the website. Try and, like I say, that one mindset shift. You turn anything about your employer brand off on your website. How do you get the message out there? There's no other option but to do it through people, through Glassdoor, through Indeed, through LinkedIn, through their content, through their posts, through their network.
And that's what's happening anyway. Don't pretend.
No, exactly. Like,
anything.
yeah, just like make it a conscious part of your strategy. That's where you should be starting. Oh, and then do a website. All your employer brand websites should be, hey, look what people say about us on Glassdoor. Hey, look what John said about us on LinkedIn, unprompted 6 years after he left. Look what our well-being score is on Indeed. Like, look at that stuff. Like, that's where you'll find out what we're like to work with. I'm not going to write anything on. Come and work at Come and work at Freeformers. If you want to know what it's like to work here, have a look on these. Actually, don't do that because there's obviously some legacy issues that we've got. We've got some reviews from the former company that used to call Freeformers. That ain't us. So we need to sort that out first.
Case in point, Toby, though, isn't it? That's a case in point. You know, previous management, previous ownership, and there's still that kind of overhang, even though it's a completely different area and a new business. Callie.
Yeah.
But there was something there that made you want to continue that brand. And that's huge.
Well, that's another live stream. Why on earth did I do what I did? Am I crazy? Yes. Am I stupid? A little. Am I overly optimistic? Almost definitely. The end.
I love it.
Yeah, but still, I mean, if there wasn't something positive in that employer brand, you would have never did what you did to have access to the Freeformers name. Which point. Ultimately says a lot. You're not running fast and far from it, like lots and lots of people are.
You bought it.
Yeah, I was about to say. So that's the question you ask people have left. Hey, we're thinking about selling. I was thinking silly about Best Buy. Would you buy us? I mean, if you had the money, it's a great question. Yeah, I love. Yeah, it has completely reframed my thinking now about the whole situation.
Very well, very great questions on that, Callie. So, everybody, another great session today. We've overrun because it's such a big topic. But as ever, thank you so much for your messages in between our sessions and our shows, for your ongoing support. Keep your questions and suggestions coming in. We love them. And we will see you all next Monday. Bye.